I asked my partner what animal, if she was a beast form, or what animal would she be, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, she's like, "What the fuck is a beast form?" And I'm like, "Never mind." That's probably something a grown man should not ask.
Too much energy.
Too much energon, like this podcast.
Cheetor, what in the ever-loving fuck have you done?
If I wanted to fly, I would have become a bat, not a rat.
It seems my head is purple fire now.
Intelligent conversation.
The louder you yell, the more damage your bullets do.
Ah! Yes. Ah, yes. Yes.
Well,
It's gonna blow.
I've decided that I want to live.
No. Not that. Ah!
good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time of day it is where you are right now listening to this. Welcome to episode 147 of not the Laser Comb podcast, of Too Much Energon.
That's our other podcast.
That is our other podcast, and I almost fucked that up. Anyway,
Way less cartoons.
episode 147 of Too Much Energon, the podcast where we talk about Beast Wars shit and talk shit about Beast Wars. Coming to you live from a mysterious floating mountain somewhere hidden on planet Energon, I am, as always, War for Cybertron Siege, one of your hosts.
And I'm your other host on a flying mountain, a floating island, flying mountain. There we go.
Flying island, floating mountain.
I'll never ever get those, and they're different. I don't know how, but Siege knows how. But I am NeoCal, the non-knower of planet Gaia.
You may have visited planet Gaia once or twice in the past, but
Technically only once. I'm coming in and I'm going out. I'm not. Unless you believe in reincarnation.
It's like the planet Gaia is like the prairie town of a road trip, if you will. You might stop there.
They have the world's biggest like angle moist volcano, but it's a lot smaller than it's just kind of like a hot spring. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or maybe they have the world's biggest stuffed cheetah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You may stop there for gas.
Go to the bathroom, buy a couple Slim Jims. Yeah.
Actually,
pop.
it's funny you mentioned Slim Jims. I just had Slim Jims recently for the first time.
Oh, for the first time.
First time. I've never actually had them.
Kind of not great, huh?
No, they're kind of the worst pepperoni stick I've ever had.
One, there's barely anything there. And I'm glad we agree on that. I took a chance there, folks, of offending my best friend, being like, yeah, kind of not great. No, actually kind of, one, not even that much. Like they're really like, well, they're slim.
They're slim,
they're
yeah.
thin. And
They live up to the
like,
name at least.
And they're kind of candy-ish, but not in a, I don't like them.
The one thing that I will give Slim Jims props for is the hot ones actually legitimately spicy. Like they don't fuck around when they say hot on it.
That's fair. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that. A lot of food where it's like, ooh, dangerously spicy or something like that, and you try it and it's like, this ain't shit.
Think shit. None of the chips that have ever been called like, like super hot or dangerously spicy. What was it? It was Cheetos, right? That are like dangerously cheesy.
Yeah. I had
They've
Flamin'
never been
Hot
hot.
Cheetos recently.
Not that hot.
No, not really. Flamin' Hot Doritos, like they have a little bit of a zing to them, but they're not.
Yeah, those have got a thing, but then you get used to them and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're not that bad. I know that there's something called like the one, or like the one chip, or the hot. You buy like a single like little pack and it's got a single very spicy like chip in it, and it
Right.
like makes people tear up. And have you heard of that? Remember, it was like a chip challenge on like YouTube for a while,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. But here we're not here to talk about flaming hot Doritos. We're here
No.
to ask each other the real questions. Siege, if you were a beast form, what animal would you transform into?
I would be a panther. Yeah.
Now that the position is open since fuck, what's the full title of Savage? What was his full thing in Beast Wars?
Covert Agent Ravage.
Overt Avon Rat Savage Ravage. Oh, you could be named Savage. There.
I saw a meme the other day. I think I posted it in the Discord. It's like of a father and son, and the son is like, "Dad, why is my sister named Rose?" And the dad's like, "Oh, because your mom loves roses. That's why." And he's like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Dad." And the father is like, "No problem, Savage Dragon."
I've seen it. Is that the first time you saw that?
That's the
meme
first time I've
format?
seen that meme format. I figured it was a meme format.
I like that one. How come my sister's named Rose? And it's like, oh, because your mom loves roses. And it was like, oh, I see. Okay, thanks for talking, Dad. And he seems like disappointed. And it's like, no problem, Naruto Uzumaki. That was the first one I saw.
Had I ever become
I also
a
want to
parent.
be a cat. Like there's already a white tiger that's taken. Is there a lynx?
I don't think so.
Lynx. Lynx are cool. Those are the ones with the big ears, right? Lynx. Yeah, I'd be a lynx. Yeah, and they got the stubby tails.
Remember when
Yeah.
Atari used to name their consoles after cats? The Atari Jaguar, the Atari Lynx.
Ah,
Yeah, that was the thing they were doing in the 90s.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And now we just got boring stuff like PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
5. I wonder what the next one's going to be named.
I saw a thing, I think it was on IGN. It was like, trusted leaker confirms the name of next Sony's console. It's going to be called the PS5 Pro. It's like, what a shock.
Oh my God. Are you saying that something that they've done for the last 3 generations is, yeah, of course there's going to be PS5 Pro, idiot. Yeah, I saw that, and like it was like leaked on 4chan and like all of this stuff, and it was like, oh, but it's going to be expensive, and it's like, yeah,
It's like, what's next? Tell me something equally crazy. The next Xbox is going to have Xbox in the name? I'm shocked.
Xbox. Let's see if they have the.
Xbox Model X. I honestly, I wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me. It could. Fuck all y'all who say that it's too confusing. Next one's Model X. That fits so well.
It does, yeah. They're mark my words. Their next system, it's going to be the Xbox Model X.
You heard it here, folks. It's the Xbox Model X.
Just give it like, I don't know, 3 years. 3 years, I'm predicting. It'll be like holiday 2027. Xbox Model X.
And that'll be the last, because they're moving more to games as a service.
Right.
Then, and they've said that. Games as a service. Yeah, I think the Model X is going to be the last Xbox.
And then I just from
until
there
PlayStation inevitably shoots itself in the foot. We have more money than God. We can't fail. Release the PS3. We say this we said this throughout the years of us podcasting. It flops back and forth. Every one of the companies becomes way too big for their britches and shoots themselves in the foot, and then it goes to the other company that year. And right now it's PlayStation's year, but they're starting to get a little.
I'm seeing more and more criticism of Sony online than I've seen in a very long time.
Right? Yeah. It's they're getting there. And what did they've been buying companies too, and Microsoft and Sony buying companies, buying studios and shutting them down.
Apparently, yeah, Sony paid like $3 billion for Bungie, and apparently have run it like completely into the ground. Bungie's on the verge of like imploding.
Yeah, and they were like, what? They just released, what was that completely generic, like Overwatch-ish? Stop. Get some help. um, I can't even remember. It's a very forgettable. Is it out or is it just the beta? I don't know, but it's a very. I think we're done with Overwatch games like 5v5, like capture the flag. Like I think we're done with that kind of shooter.
I know the game you're talking about too.
Has an unremarkable name, yeah.
Someone I work with is playing it and asked me if I was playing it, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And he's like, oh, it's like Overwatch. What it is.
And you're like, oh, is that the
Helldivers? Is that it?
Helldivers, which also is a Sony game. I think Sony.
Yeah, no, I was wondering if that was the one.
Helldivers is the bug shooting one.
Oh, okay.
I'm going in, folks. Bungie team shooter. The marathon? Is it just called? It's called Marathon.
Well, that's one of their old IPs, like even from before Halo. Yeah, I think there were 2 or 3. They were Doom clones back in the day.
Oh, you've shown me you've shown me those before. Yeah, they were. Yeah. No, it's not.
They're not bad.
Or is there a new Marathon? I don't know.
I think they're remaking it.
But that's not what we're thinking about. You know what? I don't care.
You know what?
I'm not even gonna Google it.
I'm gonna crack a beer.
We're going in, folks. We're covering episodes. Oh geez. 30. Where did we start?
38, here? 39, 40, 41, and 42.
And if that seems like a lot, it's because one is like 95%.
A clip show. So much so that I didn't watch it.
But I did while I was pulling a Bircham, and I was visiting the offices of Burnham and Bircham.
What did I say to you earlier? I said I was working on a case at the law offices of Burnham and Bircham.
Working on a case at the law offices of Burnham and Bircham. But I did watch it, and in that clip show, there's some pretty important, but kind of, sort of, not really. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah, 38.
So 38 is basically a big old fight.
It's a big old fight. I don't know how else to add.
That's what the episode is, folks. It's a fight.
and if you, that's not to say anything bad about it, but it's just, it really wants to go, hey, here's one last hurrah of all. Like, remember the seed cons? Remember the insect cons? Here's the auto rollers. Here's this, and it kind of just throws everything at you there.
So, other than it being a big old fight, basically the plot of that episode is the Maximals have decided they need to do something about the artificial planet Nemesis once and for all.
Yeah.
Because the planet's going to be destroyed, so they're going to use the ship that Lio Jr.'s like cool gay uncles arrived on.
Right, that's what the ship was. I'm like, why do they have a ship? And I forgot his uncles showed up in that ship.
Yeah. And so to get it into orbit, they're going to... This kind of reminded me of like Gary jumping into a stasis pod, not gonna lie. To go fight the Planet Buster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're gonna use this like big like catapult at Niagara Falls to launch it into space. Meanwhile, the Predacons assume that this catapult is some kind of weapon. And so they try to fuck with it. Big fight happens. The end of the day, they get shot into space.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
nice
episode.
Try. They get shot into space. Pretty important. And yeah, the next one is the
on the Too Much Energon scale.
Oh,
that
yeah.
episode
Yeah,
gets That gets a sufficient amount of energon for me.
That's a solid, sufficient amount of energon for me. It's not like there's nothing bad about it, but I mean, stuff happens and they get into space. So
Yeah.
the plot moves. Yeah.
The next episode, episode 39, is the clip show. Assemble, 39 Warriors. Cal, I'm going to let you take the floor because I didn't watch a single frame of this.
If you think that this was just a clip show, you would be right. However, I still watched it for some reason, and there's one tiny, but I think kind of important scene in here. So it shows a couple implied fights that had never been showed before. Some like little matchups here and there. None of them matter except this. The artificial planet Nemesis intercepts the what's the ship called? The pirate ship, the sea cons,
Yeah.
Con Air, if you will. And they're like, oh shit, we're gonna die. And Galvatron sends them a big old giant face message because there's nothing that says future like having like 40 like 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 projection TVs, CRTVs lined up to make one big image. That's the future I want. Cyberpunk future. And he's like, hey, I control this thing.
It's a very 1980s like office building type thing. Just like
it's also used in sci-fi to
just like an entire TV a wall of like CRT TVs that like share one image.
Which I actually don't know. Like I used to pride myself on knowing that ancient tech, being able to like plug in like consoles and like using the wire splitters to like connect Atari to, where you actually had to twist little wires around like the cable like connector and all of that. But I can't fathom how you could
those
project
the two like
the splitter.
The two like horseshoe like shaped things that you had to like screw. You had to screw on to your TV.
That's right. You
TV,
actually had
your TV had screws. You would have to like loosen the screws, slip the like the U-shaped things underneath, and then tighten the screws.
Then tighten them to so that they conducted properly.
Anyone under the age of 30 would be like, what in the ever-loving fuck are you talking about?
Look at these grandpas playing grandpa's instruments. What was it? Yeah, it was Metalocalypse, acoustic grandpa's guitars.
What are those wood things? Chairs?
Wooden things. Chairs. That's us right now. Yes, we grew up with wooden TVs.
Actually,
they
I think I talked about this a long time ago, but I fucking loved those cabinet TVs.
Everyone our age knows exactly what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
They are 200 pounds.
Yeah.
I was going to say more, but I was young. So like, you know what I mean? Like everything seemed like way heavier than it actually was, but I swear they were like 200 pounds. Let's say 100 because I was a skinny kid or like whatever, right? But they're heavy as shit. And on the right side, they have that black plastic with the volume up, volume down, like the panel like on it, and the knob on the very top of that
to change the dial. Don't touch that dial.
And it used that kind of almost like car vent. You see them on VHS like cabinets, this kind of like corrugated plastic on wood. It was the theme of the 90s. I don't know how to describe that, but everyone that or the theme of the 80s, that like kind of plastic ridge on wooden paneled things. And I
can't necessarily speak for Cal, but I think I can here in the sense that we both grew up poor. So a lot of the tech that we had in the 90s
at least a decade
was like a decade old.
Like my first console that I played a lot of was Atari 2600.
Yeah.
Like Yar's Revenge, man. Try me.
I had a Super Nintendo until like 1998 when I got like my first like Like,
yeah.
I got my first like weekend job and saved up money to get a used PlayStation from a pawn shop.
Oh shit. Yeah, it was for me, it was the Super Nintendo. And then I had a Nintendo 64 for the longest time until like PS2s were like you could just find one like on the side of the road. Like that's how long the PS2s had been out for, that like by the time I bought one, like the PS3 was coming out next year.
I actually found a
Well,
PS2
maybe a
on
couple of
the
years.
side of the road about 10 years ago.
What the heck?
No, I did actually. I wish I still had it, or because it had the network adapter attached to it, which I wish I had just held on to that because those things are actually kind of rare nowadays.
Oh wow, it actually had the network adapter.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I remember buying one of those because it didn't come with it. Wait, no, yeah, it did. I'm thinking of the multiplayer like the internet connection thing where you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
take off the PS2.
Yeah, the fat model PS2, the black
Yeah.
thing that you had to screw on the back. That
Yeah.
that gave it like network functionality. When
Fuck
they
yeah.
released the Slim, that had like an Ethernet port and like a phone jack like built into it, but
Is that what you're talking about? That big fat thing you put in, like had to screw the back
on the
into it?
back. Yep.
Oh
Yeah, I know. I wish I had held on to it because you can use that with like fat model PS2s to like basically turn it into like a homebrew like console,
yeah.
like
Oh,
for like emulators and shit like that.
burning it. Yeah, I knew it, that. Oh, that was required. Okay, I had a friend that would like burn PS2 games, but he needed that on his PS2. And he'd be like, "Oh, check this out." And he'd put a CD in it, and there'd be like 3 games in it, and he could like play. Yeah, what
Yeah.
the interesting, interesting.
Yeah, there's straight up just like soft modding software now. You don't even need like a hardware mod, but if you have the network adapter and a hard drive, because a hard drive would connect to it as well,
Yeah,
and you could slot it into the PS2. So if you have that, you can buy these like it's like this pack. I can't remember what it's called. There's a few different ones, but it will be a memory card and like a boot disk, and you use the boot disk to like and the memory card to like install like
that's it.
this
That's
modding
it.
software
Yeah.
onto the hard drive.
And then when you boot up the PS2, it just brings up that
Yeah,
menu. And that's when I saw my friend. He'd be like, "Oh, check this out." And he'd turn it on. It would just black screen and then like pop up like this menu.
yeah.
And I'd be like, "Wait a second. Are you a wizard?"
What sorcery is this?
In D&D, sorcery and wizardry, very different. Very different.
I can see that.
They
Yeah.
cast the same fucking spells. I don't care. All right. So what's damn what episode? Oh, the Seacons, in order to have their lives spared, they pledge their allegiance. They literally, the leader is called Limp Biscuit. What the fuck? It Shuffle Deck, Shell Shock, whatever. Yar matey, and he's like, I don't want to have to. I never bend the knee. And he's like, then I suppose Gaviscon's like, then I'll suppose you die. And Seacon pirate dude is like, please, we're not worthy. And they all like get down on their like knees and like beg and like be like, oh, we'll join you. Don't kill us. So it's weird that later on, when it
Come on, we're here. Don't kill us. Don't kill us
Don't
now.
kill
We are
us.
here.
that that's the gist of it. That's the only thing that happens. I don't know why they threw that like very important tiny scene in the clip show, but whatever. Weirder things have.
Big
You
ol'
knew what was happening just fine in the next episode without knowing that. Well, you were a little confused.
I was a little confused at first. So the next episode, episode 40, Revenge of the Space Pirates, the Maximals are flying the shuttle. I was trying to come up with a name for it, but whatever. The shuttle.
What was Captain Falcon's vehicle's name? Falcon 1 or I don't know.
F-Zero.
Was it just
I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's what it is.
The F-Zero mobile. So the Maximals are flying this shuttle.
Blue Falcon. They're flying the Blue Falcon.
They're flying the Blue Falcon into the Millennium Blue Falcon
There we go.
into the artificial planet Nemesis, and all of a sudden the Seacons, the old Maritimers, the seamen, if you will, just show up, and I'm like, wait, why are they here all of a sudden?
And if you made the very accurate mistake of assuming the entire last episode was a clip show, you'd be like, why are they here and why are they attacking the Maximals?
But the episode itself clarifies all of that eventually anyway.
Yeah, so not only do they attack them, they have to change course. But there's a problem because, and I appreciate this because this is where the show kind of gets like a little bit science-y. Not at all, but just a little bit, is they don't necessarily have enough fuel to completely steer off course and then come back and land on the planet.
Right.
So they actually end up, correct me if I'm wrong, they end up crash landing on a meteor.
Yeah.
On a meteoroid. And both their ships land on it and they fight it out. And this is the first time that we see Magnaboss fight God Neptune.
Yeah, that didn't actually occur to me until
Same.
God Neptune was like all surprised.
He was like, wait, you're a combiner too?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, this hasn't happened before?
Not sure if I believe that or not, but I also don't care enough
Right?
to look it up.
Or to go back and, God forbid,
Rewatch an episode.
episodes.
Never.
Foremost Beast Wars podcast, folks. On the
Mark my words. We're going to be done with Beast Wars 2nd very soon here. Mark my words. I will never rewatch an episode of this show in my entire life.
and that being said, same. But that being said, these last few episodes, they're pretty good. And the fact that it's showing character progression and there's fights and things are moving, dare I say it? What would you give this one? We haven't summed it up quite.
Yeah, we haven't finished it. So God Neptune, the Maximals notice that God Neptune is fighting like a lot more brutally than they did before, and they're all confused about this. And Lyle Conboy,
I love how they beat him.
Himself is even like, hey, guys, what are you doing? Like, I thought you only fought if there was profit to be had. There's no profit.
Yeah, and
here.
they're fighting like to kill him. Like,
yeah.
and I like that they beat God Neptune, not because Magnaboss is stronger, but with the power of friendship. All the Maximals run forward and like fighting like 8 toddlers at once. They all just squeeze onto their legs and arms. Even the taco tank like latches onto its face. And or am I getting this fight confused with a
I think it's funny that now that's all Scuba does in the show. Like is drive around the taco tank. That's literally
and
all
to
he
be
does in the
fair,
show
if I
now.
had a giant octo tank, maybe I would maybe I would too. No, I'm getting this confused with how they beat. No, that is how they beat him. Right. And then he goes, angle moist balls. And Magnaboss shoots his angle moist chest ball at him.
And that's enough to make them like force like separate. And apparently also
snap out of it.
Yeah, snap out of it. Because we find
here's weird because go ahead. Yeah.
Because we find out that the reason why they're acting the way they are is because they've been corrupted by the evil Angle Slam energy.
And in fact, they're kind of like, where are we? What happened? Which is weird because that didn't happen. In the previous, like that tiny little clip, it showed them willfully being like, okay, we'll stop or slow down Lyo Convoy and the Maximals for you. And now it's acting like they were like in an Angle Slam like rage.
Yeah, they fell in the river of slime in Ghostbusters 2, basically.
Yeah. Which is kind of actually how we must have made that reference.
I feel like you did on a recent episode.
I feel like I did. Yeah, it gets you all ragey.
Yeah.
But maybe it can get you all loving too.
Maybe.
Well, actually, not quite. I'm getting ahead of myself. Um, and then there's some science on the show. So what happens is they will not reach, they don't have the fuel necessary to reach the planet Nemesis. The artificial planet Nemesis.
Yeah, you got to say the full thing.
Yeah. Um, but, oh, and by the way, it's showing Moon and Artemis freaking out this whole time. And Artemis begins to pray. Um, Moon, see, Artemis believes in magic spirit things, and Moon is like, I believe in science, god damn it. Moon goes over to the asteroid, which is apparently just, like a few hundred meters away from the moon. Sure, why not? And he's like, hey, Lion Convoy Jr., I know you can see and hear me now. You need to do this complex maneuver where you use and I'm going to use the proper terms. They don't say this in the show, but basically using the moon's gravity well, use something called a gravitational slingshot to, as they're accelerating and going into a falling orbit, use that speed gained to give you a boost to increase your velocity. And then you will reach the artificial planet Nemesis at the same time that you would have before. Now, Artemis is praying, and it heavily implies that this maneuver is very difficult. It shows Apache like being like, oh man, you know what happens, Lao Convoy, if this fails though? We crash into the moon. Which I thought was hollow? Question mark? I guess not. Like, it is it a real moon? Isn't it? I always just shows the like the mesh holographic netting as the moon whenever Moon and Artemis are in it. Anyways, they're afraid of crashing into it. So clearly it's not a hologram because it has this big gravitational pull that can slingshot the ship, right?
Yeah, I never thought the moon in this show was a hologram.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's not. That was just to show us that Artemis and Moon are inside of the moon, I guess. Now here's the thing. The artificial slingshot thing, they're acting like they've never heard of this before. These are advanced robots that have interstellar flight.
I was going to say they're space
years from now.
They're a spacefaring species.
And they are a spacefaring species, and they're acting like they've just heard of like gravitational slingshot for the first time like ever, and they're like, oh geez, it's crazy, but it might just work. That's how we got the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2 probes into the outer solar system.
That's how the Apollo
almost every
space capsules, that's how they came back.
Yeah.
Was slingshotting around the moon.
And
to basically like throw them back to Earth.
Yeah, that is how like
that is like one of the like OG the like oldest basics of space travel.
So I'm like, what, your computer or yourselves don't have the, and it's not about praying or faith or Apache being a hot shot pilot, but that's how they treat it as. And it actually shows Artemis like praying and her like prayers coming true. And then when they pull off this maneuver, which is cool on the show, but they're all acting like this is like, oh, maybe it's a miraculous. And indeed, Moon goes back to Artemis and she's like, oh, your praying must have worked. I can't believe it worked. And I'm like, your praying didn't work. You guys are, your ship has an AI, so it should have been able to calculate the trajectory. Also, you're a spacefaring Anyway, the probes, the Voyager, the golden discs, if you will, were shot out 42, oh geez,
almost 50 years
long ass time ago. Okay, we're still getting info from them, and the majority of their propulsion was from doing this. You're telling me that like a fucking like dish and like a bunch of like tinfoil, and like I still think it used magnetic tape for its computing.
It would have, yeah.
Like, yeah, like it still has it out there. You're telling me that that and weak
Well, it's not like there's
signals.
any.
You're
It's
telling
not
me
like
this
there's
thing
anyone
could-
out there to like throw in a solid state drive.
No, no, it still had like magnetic tape computing. But these guys, extremely advanced, at least a million years off into the future, have never. Anyways, that's my little rant. I think the episode is great, right? But it's like
Right.
they're using a real maneuver, but they're acting like it's like, oh, geez, like this is super risky. Why? Why is it risky?
I mean, I guess to a 6-year-old, maybe.
So I like that they're teaching kids about like the gravitational like maneuvers, but acting like they've never ever heard of it, and that it's like, oh, super like dangerous or whatever. Now if it had said, oh, our navigational equipment on the ship is broken,
You know
and we
where
have to,
you know where
well,
I
you know what,
learned-
I'm just gonna say that that's what it is.
you know where I learned of this concept from was Star Trek 4,
Armageddon.
Voyage Home. It's not the moon in that movie, but it's the sun. But it's the same basic principle. They slingshot themselves around the sun as a method of time travel.
Oh,
But like that's how I, as a kid, like learned like the basic concept
to go into the future.
to go into the past.
I'll just be.
To go back to 1987.
You have to go faster than the speed of light to break the laws. Anyways, but the closer you approach the speed of light, the more mass
Well,
you
they're
become,
as they're going
and then
around
the more
s-
energy you need. Until you approach the speed of light, you need infinite energy to. Sorry, go ahead.
as they're going around the sun, they're gradually increasing their warp speed, which even warp 1 is like faster than the speed
That's
of light.
fair. That's fair. True. Right.
And they're gradually increasing their warp speed all the way up to warp 10 or
Mhm.
warp 9.9, which is like the maximum like warp threshold that can be achieved.
That's right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Because
anything
like warp 9 is like dangerous.
yeah, you can go to warp 9.9, but once you try to exceed warp factor 10, the warp bubble will collapse and the ship will be ripped apart.
And the reason that Star Trek can get away with faster than light speed is because they're warping space time. The vessel itself isn't actually moving faster than light.
Yeah, despite what it looks like visually in the show. The
From the
actual
perspective, yeah.
science, they're warping space.
Mhm. Otherwise, otherwise, it wouldn't make any gosh darn sense.
Yeah.
Well, otherwise they'd be limited to the speed of light, which means they would never get anywhere.
I think the speed of light is impulse speed in Star Trek, which is basically impulse
Oh.
speed is what they use to just maneuver around in like a solar system.
Oh, okay. Still incredibly fast, but
Yeah. Guess what, folks? I fucking love Star Trek.
I love science. But I won't get into the science of light speed and infinite mass and all of that stuff. I'll just say, good job, you guys. You're landing on you're going towards the big old Sauron eye.
I like sci-fi like Star Trek or Stargate that makes their science nonsense sound believable.
Or even can kind of theoretical. That
Yeah.
uses theoretical science. And yeah, I like that too. Because
It's-
instead of because then they can explore theoretical science that can't be explored in reality, and kind of make up the rules for when they explore that stuff, which technically isn't breaking. Like it's saying, if this worked, this is what would happen, and I like that kind of science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in like Stargate 1 or Star Trek, where they're like, oh, it's a concept, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of like drop a little info dump, and you're like, son of a bitch, it checks out.
Sounds believable. Sounds like science to me. That's
All right. And
that's the kind of sci-fi I appreciate.
yeah. So I'm liking that there's some science going on here. And I also like that as they approach the artificial planet Nemesis, um, almost like Nemesis has been flying through space for like countless millennia. These giant cannons fold out of the ground, kind of like the surface of it has been covered with like debris and like dust and like rocky stuff for like hundreds or thousands of years. I thought that was a cool effect.
That was a cool effect. And you know what would have made that scene cooler is this music. From Beast Wars.
That would have made that pretty cool. Right? As the cannons shoot up and they're like, oh fuck, Nemesis has guns? That would have been pretty fucking cool.
Right. That song is from the OG Beast Wars when the Planet Buster is transforming. That brings up another point. There was a soundtrack to Beast Wars, an official soundtrack released recently. It came out about a week ago. That piece of music I played, I think is like the legit, like the best banger on that show's soundtrack. It's like this the song that always plays whenever like
impending doom.
Whenever like stuff involving the aliens is like about to go like haywire.
Yeah, it used to be scary up until the very end of, and then it was just like, I don't know. I guess the Vok are like two spirit masks. I don't know. So yeah, what would you give
what a
episode?
Fucking hype finale though.
That's true.
It's just like the planet buster like transforming, and like that's where we leave it.
Yeah. We're not covering the Beast Wars. We're covering Beast Wars second, damn it.
Not gonna lie, I still get hype for that first season of Beast Wars.
Yeah.
Still,
it's
even
hype.
to this day, I still get hype for a lot of it.
I've
said it before as one of the best openings in TV history, and the season finale of season 1 of that show. Great.
Agreed. And you can, if you're for some reason, ungodly reason, you're watching us cover Beast Wars second, please go back and watch us, but not the first part of the podcast. Please go watch us. We started with Beast Wars.
We did.
Mainframe Entertainment's Beast Wars.
See, here's the thing, is I think now we're better podcasters overall, and we make a better show, but we were reviewing a better show at the beginning of this podcast.
There's that. Yeah, episodes were long. We didn't get to the point, and
it's a little 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah. But speaking of getting to the point, what would you... We just did a slingshot around the moon. We just fought the Seacons. What are you giving this one?
It gets a sufficient amount of energon.
It gets
on the higher side of sufficient.
I'm going to give it a low too much energon.
Oh shit!
Because I like the gravitational slingshot. I like that they pulled real Goram science into this. And there we go.
And well, there it is.
We did it.
Next episode is episode 41, Breaking into Nemesis. What the fuck happens in this episode? I can't remember.
So
something
the
about
Maximals.
Something about them sneaking into an exhaust port.
Yeah, so they land the ship on the surface of the Nemesis, right? The Blue Falcon, if you will, and Gigastorm and his cronies go to F them up, but they're not coming out of the ship. And so they go inside the ship. Gigastorm can't fit, but all of his cronies can. And wouldn't you know it, they set it to self-destruct. Like they're like, we can't leave. Like it's all or nothing.
Suicide mission.
And in the very least, and then we cut to the Maximals when we see like it's like the Predator thing, like counting down, and they're like, wait, what's this countdown? and it's very clearly like a golden eye kind of like circle as like like the symbol, your HP or armor is like going down. They're like and that blows up, and we cut to the
This
others,
is
and
like
it's like,
this is like Joker flying the Normandy straight into the galactic core.
and he goes, I'm back. Oh, wait a second, that's Independence Day. Same thing. Oh geez. Okay, so then we cut to the Maximals who are sneaking around on the surface, and they're like, hey, we found this exhaust port. We need to go inside. And it's like, but now here's the thing. A lot of you need to cover us, but some of us need to go into the core and blow this mother up. However, we need Magnabos to stay here because he can fly the rest of you out into open space to try to survive. And then maybe Cybertron HQ can come and retrieve us from the
Seems
void
like a
of
long
space.
shot to me, but
It's a long shot, but it's like, and they do, and it's like, but it's better than staying on the surface and fucking dying.
doing nothing. And we get that scene where everyone is like volunteering to go. Like, no, it should be me.
This trope,
no, it should
that's
be
like,
me.
I'll stay and die, because it's like, because Lao Convoy is like, no, here's the thing, like, whoever happens to blow it up, probably not gonna make it out. Probably gonna die.
We even got that same trope at the end of season 1 of the OG Beast Wars cartoon. But in that scene, we had everyone volunteering to go. But we also had Rat Trap being like, hey, don't look at me. You guys are fucking nuts.
Hey, I've decided that I want to live.
Yeah. We don't get that here, though. Unfortunately.
All right. But yeah, I'll wrap up this one because we got things to do. But this episode is decent once they get into the planet. So what ends up happening is Lion Convoy is like, hey, love the motivational speeches, love the gumption. Here's the thing. Scuba, he's got a tank. Sorry, sorry, folks. It's me and Scuba. I need you, Junior, to stay back and protect this hole. Don't cover our rear, cover our six. And yeah, in we go. And it's like, I don't want to hear no buts. This is an order. And so Taco Tank, Scuba, and Lio Convoy jump into the exhaust port. And then it turns into like a really good villain intro. There's this like long, scary, maniacal laugh as the camera slowly pans and looks at the shadow of Gaviscon and falls on him. He's never done such a maniacal laugh before, and he's in this big throne in this big like chrome like room. And it's kind of like, what is a man but a miserable pile of secrets? Like there's some shit talking going on here.
We get some interesting character work from Gaviscon too, where he tries to convince Lio Jr., who I know I'm getting ahead of myself. That might be the next episode, but whatever.
No, it's this one. So what ends up happening is he reveals, hey, justice can only be delivered with power. And Lio Convoy is like, no, justice is, and I hate his answer. They end up fighting it out, right? And the only reason that he's not overpowered, Lio Convoy, is because Scuba's like, Taco Ink, and inks his face, and he's like, oh, my eyes, I can't see. And he's like, hey, you need to get to the core now. Like, fucking go, dude. And he's like, but, and he's like, that's an order. Yes, sir. And he goes off, and they end up fighting, and he uses his whirlwind. What's the lion whirlwind, or I can't remember.
Something like that, yeah.
Or something like that. And coincidentally blows off all the ink that was blinding him.
Lio Twister.
Twister lion mane.
Lio Twister Fister.
The Twister Fister. You know what? That's what it is. And he's like, justice comes from the spirit of one's heart. And I'm like, I mean, the cops have guns. Justice kind of comes from like laws. I'm kind of on one side more than the other here. No, I don't think Gaviscon is good, but I don't think justice comes from the power of one's heart, the spirit
No,
of one's heart. Sorry.
justice comes from social order being restored.
Yeah, and I kind of think both
As
of them are wrong.
as like an intellectual concept, that's the gist, very
And
basic way of explaining like what justice is.
uh, um, facing repercussions through use of force is one of the ways of keeping justice. Don't think justice is the power of one spirit, but cool story, bro. And well, wouldn't you know it, while the fight is happening, artificial planet Nemesis is sucking spaghetti strings, a mozzarella pull, if you will.
I kind of wonder if maybe it's a translation error, like it's something that's lost in
knows?
translation. But
I knew it was going to be something like the power of one's soul, or the desire to do good, or something dumb like that. But I guess all of the factories all across the planet that the auto rollers have made, um, and a whole bunch of volcanoes, they just start spewing up the angle slam. Instead of the planet falling apart, like I thought this was a planet eater, num num, like Unicron. No,
it's just draining all of the angle slam.
in like a dozen like long lines of like energy tubes. Kind of a cool looking effect. And we get Moon and Artemis praying, or is it the Maximals praying or something like that?
It's Artemis and Moon.
And they see that there's still life on the planet. Like it shows lions running and shows like the life is alive.
And I can't remember if it's this episode or the next one, but I was so relieved because Artemis actually fucking does something.
So
For the
Artemis,
first time
after
ever.
praying and becoming a magical girl, finally fucking does something besides just praying. Because Moon is like, hey, I don't think praying is gonna help us right now. That's right. And she's like, hey, Gaia's speaking to me.
Yeah.
And for anybody saying, oh, I don't like the spirituality of that, you're watching the wrong show. I'm sorry. Transformers has lots of spirit, all of, not
It
just
does,
Beast
yeah.
Wars, has lots of spirituality. And when they clasp hands, they can see that the animals are fighting to stay alive. They're running, they're rampaging. And so Artemis is like, you know what, Moon, like I've got an idea, but like we might die.
Yeah. So
And Moon's like,
are you with me? And Moon's like, of course
Fuck.
I'm with you.
let's do it. And for the first time, I'm like, fuck, yes. She can control the moon. She can control the fucking moon. And you know what she does? She goes and uses it to shield and block all the angle slam from reaching Nemesis. But guess where that
Unfortunately,
goes? It kind of
What?
just hits the moon and starts to heat it up.
and in the process, like Lio Convoy is seemingly destroyed by all the angle
And then
slam energy.
all the angle slam, when it flows into Nemesis, the artificial planet Nemesis, their fight, Gaviscon and Lio Convoy's fight, is brought to a close because he's swept away in all of the angle slam energy. And unlike Gaviscon, who's like evil and it makes him more powerful, it's implied and told, like he ends up telling Lio Convoy Jr., it's like, because ominously they meet inside a corridor in the ship, which is the best scene in the entire series. He approaches him and he's like, hey, Lio Convoy's dead. And he's like, no, he's my dad. And I half expected Gaviscon to be like, no, I am your father.
No, Junior. I am your
Look,
father.
search your heart, your feelings. You know it to be true. Because he's made from the angle.
Now give me your
moist,
hand, son. Zoom. Haha!
just for reasons.
My hand now, bitch.
And yeah, he's like, hey, we need to rule the universe and bring peace. Like, you need to join my side. You have compassion and bravery. So you need to be my successor.
It's interesting that these are qualities that the bad guy is
Compassion.
looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says this to Gigastorm later, how he's like, because later when the homies are bragging that they were dead. Maybe we're conflating two episodes in one. We got to run here, folks. But Gaviscon tells his men and Gigastorm to shut up because they're laughing about how Lio Convoy and Lio Convoy Jr. died down there. And he's like, oh, shut up. And they're like, huh? Big brother? And it's also sad because Gigastorm actually really wants the love of his
older brother.
Galvatron.
Yeah.
And wants to prove that he loves him. And I'm like, man, there's some shit going on in these. And he's like, yeah, but would you die for me?
Yeah,
look me in the eyes, bitch. No, say it. And then when he looks him in the eyes, and he says, I guess I can die for you. And he's like, no, look me in the eyes. And he can't meet his gaze. And he shuts up. He's like, that's what I thought. Punk.
Yeah, at the beginning of this series, I never would have expected Galvatron, of all characters, to be like the most like fleshed out with the most depth.
Especially because he's not at the beginning.
No.
He's like the sleeping giant who wakes up, goes on a rampage. They grab his tail and he goes to sleep for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then as they're having a moment of silence, the Maximals, they're offered mercy. They're like, you have to join us. And we're going to rule with this the perfect fortress nemesis. That's what he's trying to make it a thing.
Well, because now it's all charged up with all the angle slam energy from planet Gaia, right?
Yeah. And wouldn't you know it though?
Lio Jr. has a vision quest and meets the spirit of Lio Convoy, which is being protected by the angle slam energy.
And it's kind of like, I'm not really alive, but I'm not dead. My spark is being protected by the Matrix.
Yeah.
But if the barrier stops, I'll be dead. And if you come in here to try to save me, you'll die too.
And Lio Jr. is like, no, Dad! Opens his chest up.
And runs and dives into the like core, this protective thing.
And Gaviscon's actually like mourning and is like,
yeah, he's like everybody stop fighting. We need to like commemorate the greatest of us have died. And so that's why you're not going to destroy like the Maximals. We need to convince them that they need to join us. And I'm like, man,
interesting. Yeah.
Right. And he's like, you need to stop fighting. Like I've won. But wouldn't you know it? Apache's like, no, even if there's 100% chance we'll lose, we need to fight for what's right. And yeah, like, that's right, my man.
We're definitely conflating the last two episodes.
Two. But we're combining two. Yeah, we're combining two because they're both good and they're both flow into each other.
Yeah. So from out of the angle slam energy emerges a big, fabulous, like green lion
with like a Super Saiyan mane, like it's extra long.
And I can't remember who, but like someone starts talking about like the legend of Lio Convoy becoming the green lion.
They just made this up.
And I'm
like Apache or someone. And it's like, it is said that he will achieve his final form, the legend of the legendary green lion. And that's how you know Lio Convoy has like achieved like enlightenment. I'm like, none of you have talked about this before.
Yeah, I know. That was my thought too. It's like, this has not been a thing whatsoever before this episode.
No. But I mean, sure, why not? And his voice, the Green Lion's voice, is both Junior's and Lio Convoy's. So that's kind of cool. Like they become one, and they did a fusion dance, so to speak.
I'm sure this is a way for Takara to sell a green redeco of the Lio Convoy toy.
And then something interesting happens. Gaviscon turns his back to the Green Line and everybody oohing and awing and says, Gigastorm, if you actually do love me and you have more compassion and bravery than Lion Convoy did, you will take out the lion. And they end up fighting. And with one move, like it's like they yell like lion mane typhoon. They send Gigastorm back.
Lio missile.
Yeah, flying backwards. And as he's flying backwards from like this huge blast, he goes, Oni-chan, like, oh, big brother, I promise, I love you, and blows up, implying that he's fucking dead. Like there's an explosion, and we never see that before. Usually it shows them going, ugh, and like knocked out or something, right? I mean, he's probably fine, but like the implication that he just died trying to prove is that he did love Galvan. Damn, man, what the fuck is with these episodes?
And it sets up the big like final confrontation between Lio Convoy in this now like Green Lion form and Gaviscon on the next episode.
And we did merge 2 episodes, but I'm giving both those episodes too much energon.
They both get a high sufficient amount of energon.
Oh, okay. It still wasn't enough to. Okay. Still wasn't enough to win you over, huh?
Not quite.
I was hyped. I was hyped.
Well,
no unanimous too much energon yet. I don't think that's happened, or has it?
It's happened, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That was episode 147 of Too Much Energon. Best way to support the show is to go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. Wow, I don't usually fuck that up. I got stuff on my mind, folks. Anyway, patreon.com/lazorcomb. Starting at the $5 tier, you get access to our weekly Super Lazorcomb Patreon Super Show exclusive podcast. At the $10 tier, you get that. Plus, you get our commentary podcast, Too Much Commentary. And
movie commentary.
And you also get to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on our other podcast, the Lazorcomb podcast, the one I mistakenly thought that we were recording at the beginning of this episode. There's also a $20 tier with a whole bunch of other goodies. So if you want to get in on that, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb. Join the Discord if you want to interact with us. As always, link in the description. Buy a Too Much Energon t-shirt. Link in the description for that as well. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with episode 148, where we will be covering the final episode of Beast Wars 2nd. And indeed, that will be the final episode of the podcast. Not for good, but for a while. And we'll talk more about that on the next episode. And until then, I've been The Siege, one of your hosts.
And I'm NeoCal, your other host.
And until next time, Lio Missile.
Well, what did we call Lion Fist you?
Lion Fister Twister you. Twister Fister you.
The Twister Fister.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Who's the Cheetor of Beast Wars 2nd?
It was originally Tasmania Kid, but it's kind of become Lio Jr.
Yeah. And as far as jumping in, like, without thinking, that's also the He-Man himself. So it's kind of like there's multiple Cheetor Light. That's Rhinox's brand of choice, by the way. Cheetor Light. Or is that like a cigarette? Maybe that's a cigarette. Cheetor Smooths. There we go.
Cheetor Smooths. Cheetor Slims.
Cheetor Slims. There we go.
Because, hey, cheetahs are pretty slender, right? So it kind of fits.
It. Somebody get marketing on that. What? It already exists. Probably.
I'll probably put that as like, sometimes if we have a bit that I like, but I've already decided on something for the cold open, but it won't fit with the rest of the episode, I'll throw it in as like a post-credits thing.
Oh, yeah, I've
I've
seen
done
that
that
before. Yeah,
I've done
seen,
that a few times.
Yeah.
Like the outro will happen, and then all of a sudden we're just back on like a little like thing.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like post credits jokes.
A stinger.
Or a what was it the comedies used to do? Like outtakes. Yeah.
Buzz.
Oh, buzz. Wow, wow. Ah.
Oh, I'm gonna sting you.
I forgot about that. I don't even remember what that. Something. What must have been an Insecticon.